So with Scream 6 now officially in the history books, we are all but now set in making our way into the next entry, which will be that of Scream 7, as many of the horror fans are wondering as to kind of what they're going to be going with in terms of an approach to not only introduce a newer story to add on and continue following the events of both Scream 5 and Scream 6, but with the parallels now being shown by comparison to 1 and 2, and now possibly even 3 having to reflect onto 7, joining me right now to further tackle the subject of Scream 7 is my good friend and YouTuber Mark and I. Now Mark, one of my friends actually went as far as to make a note of something very interesting that kind of eluded me at first, in the fact that Scream 5 seems to mirror that of Scream 1 and Scream 6 seems to mirror that of Scream 2, because of course involving the events of the family, the dad being revealed as being the killer in 6, similar to that of the mom in 2. So with that said, is it likely that we might actually get an opportunity to see Scream 7 mirror that of Scream 3, in a sense where not only would we go as far as to have one singular killer, just like how Roman was in Scream 3, but what are the odds of, out of all the characters being introduced as being Ghostface, one of the most unsuspecting twists that they could end up running with is by having the idea of Leslie Mocker, Stu Mocker's sister, end up being the killer in 7, because not only would her motive serve as getting vengeance for her brother, if she even cares to begin with, but if you want to tie everything together in having her be the killer, in which kind of forces her in going after Sam and Tara, would it make sense for her to kind of go as far as to go after them given her son's death in Scream 5? And so if that were to be the case, and it turns out that indeed a Mocker ends up being Ghostface in a Scream movie outside of Scream 1, then do you think this would make more logical sense in having Stu's sister be the killer? Or, just like many other fans have wanted and clamored onto, just like myself and you, would you rather instead see Stu be the killer and going after Sydney for the final time?
I think there's a pretty good chance that Leslie could be the killer for a couple of different reasons. I think the main reason is that if we're following what happened in 6, where Richie gets killed in 5, right? And his family is out for vengeance because they blame everybody else. It's like, dude, your son was a psychopathic murderer. It's weird that you would do this. Okay, whatever, family. I think that it would make sense for Leslie to come back, because Leslie's also the mother of Vince, and Vince got killed in 5, and I think you could also run with that a little bit further, where it's like, she's mad that her brother got killed, and then she's mad that years later, through all this bullshit, like, her son also gets killed. And I think there's something unique with that, and that the detective and the brother and sister in 6, they were trying to get revenge for their brother and son. They only lost one, but Leslie has lost 2 people to all this like in-universe stab bullshit. So there's a lot more to that. And I think also with I think what was it? It was Billy's mom that was one of the killers, right? In 2. And you can see that there is a lot going on with a mom who's lost her son, like completely gone nuts. So it would stand to reason that Leslie, who I think was only mentioned in Scream 5, I don't even think she was mentioned in the other Scream movies, because either that or I forgot, because I was just like, I don't remember there being a sister, but okay, whatever. I think it would have to be linked to the fact that that Vince got killed as well. And since everyone seems to be related to some killer or some survivor, and it's all coming full circle, it stands to reason that Leslie would be brought up in 5 and then ignored and never brought up again? No. Definitely would need to come back as a killer for sure, for revenging her son and her brother. It would be weird to bring her up and then just completely like ignore that character, because I don't know why they would do that, or unless they're just like setting up for the possibility. But I think there's a good chance they brought her up for that specific reason. I think it would be a good idea, and I think it would also have some fun payoffs as well. I think there's a lot of potential there. I don't know if there's some big overarching theme behind all this and some sort of mastermind, because I forget the guy's name, but in Scream 3 it's revealed that he's the guy who got Billy on the trail of finding out that Sydney's mom cheated and got in between his family. He was the one who set it all up. He was like the true mastermind and killer of all that stuff. Like that was his whole thing. And being the half brother of Sydney, and like everything is family related. Everything is revenge and family, and I don't know. I think because of all that, and because they're running with that theme so much over the last few movies, I think there's more than a good chance that Leslie could return, or I guess not even return, but like first time appear as a killer. But she would need help. I think there's just such a like, oh, look at the surprise, like there's 2 killers. That will also have to come into play. So Leslie would not be alone. I don't think we're gonna have one Scream killer like ever again in the franchise, because it's too easy, I think, to have all these red herrings now, where it's like, oh, like this person can't be the killer. They're in the shot where the killer is killing somebody else, like, so it can't be them. But then it's always like, oh no, we were, working together this whole time, and then we turn on each other or some shit. Like, I think that's certainly something that's gonna happen. I think it probably would be Leslie, and maybe she has like another child or something like that, that also wants revenge for, their sibling's death or something like that. I don't fucking know. I think that's a pretty strong possibility as well. But I think they also, so if I'm not mistaken, Leslie is only mentioned in Scream 5, and her brother is Stu, and her son is Vince, but I don't remember there being a reference to Vince's dad. So if you were going to do that, yeah, you could probably have Leslie and her baby daddy come in and be a good killer duo. I think that's a possibility. I was definitely surprised, though, with 6 doing 3 killers. I don't know how often you could pull that, but, if we get to Scream 11 and there's like 7 killers out, like that would be a little crazy. But I don't know. I mean, we've also talked about the possibility of there being a bunch of cult worshippers that just go absolutely nuts over the idea of Stab as a franchise, and I mean, we're getting close to that concept too with the shrine and people being obsessed with the franchise so much that they want to kill and start a new spin-off franchise, or even in Scream 6 where you have the kid, whatever his name is, the kid from the Spider-Man movies, the kid who plays Flash, how he kills someone and he's just like, yeah, I loved killing. It was just so easy, whatever. Like, it just seemed like people were so cool with the idea of killing and being fine with it, that this universe is in universe has completely lost their minds. So Leslie definitely, I think, could be a part of it, but as to who her accomplices could be anybody's guess.
See, and I think that's the thing, right? You could make Leslie Mocker, I guess, whatever her maiden name would be at that point, the killer in the story, but it just really wouldn't hit the same as it would with Stu, because they kind of teased that, yeah, maybe Stu didn't really die courtesy of the television, and it was very interesting that, in which Kirby had made a note of, that maybe perhaps in some kind of way when cops are either bribed or when there's money involved, that they could essentially go to any lengths to either cover something up or even go as far as to get themselves involved in a case to where they kind of tamper with the evidence involved, you know what I mean? So in my own opinion, after looking back on it now, I definitely feel like they might reflect back on Scream 3 to kind of borrow elements and traits that made that movie interesting in possibly even giving us a singular Ghostface versus 2 or 3 or 4 of them, in which I think that if they were to do that, the only singular Ghostface that should come about would be Stu. I think having Stu pursue Sydney, go after Sam and Tara for his own motives, in which we're going to be discussing on a later video, would make the most sense. But even then, do you think that it would make the most sense at the end of a potential Scream 7 movie for the killer to be revealed to be that of Stu's sister? Or do you think that fans would just essentially lose interest in seeing the fact that it's her, but not really Stu, the person that they have been anticipating and kind of hoping for this entire time?
Okay, I have a lot to say about that, because I've thought about this. So first, you're having the motivation, you're implying that there would have to be a good reason for a complete sociopathic psycho to go nuts and kill a bunch of teenagers. They don't need a good reason. I don't, because remember, Stu's initial reason was not a good reason. Like, Billy had his reasoning behind what he did. Sure, he had ulterior motives, but he kept those from Stu. And what was Stu's reasoning? Peer pressure. The dude didn't have a good reason. He didn't have a justifiable reason for what he was doing, as if there ever would be one for being a serial killer. I do think, though, that since we're running with the whole family thing, I do think Stu is alive, or they wrote all that intentionally with the possibility of Stu being alive as like an out for them if the writers don't have a better idea. But if I'm a writer, if I'm in that room, if I'm, working with Miramax Studios and I'm trying to put or whatever studio, and I'm trying to put all this together, my rationale would be Stu is alive. Leslie helped him maybe get better or something like that. Maybe she's the one, like a detective, or maybe she's a blood spatter analyst a la Dexter, and she falsifies like her reports or something like that, and maybe she works at, the morgue, a detective. I don't know. There's so many different things that can be done. She doesn't even have to be involved in it in that way. But I do think that Stu could definitely be the killer, and I think in being the killer, he could have an accomplice who is not a killer as well. There can be more than one participant, but not a killer. They don't have to wear the mask. So Leslie could technically not be a killer, never wearing the ghost-faced mask at all, and it could just be Stu. Stu's motivation is that he wants to maybe not necessarily clear his good name, but the equivalent of that for a serial killer who wants to like try to show all these copycats how it's done. He's embarrassed and ashamed that all these people are copying what he and Billy did all those years ago to no avail. And maybe that's his reasoning. And he's after Sidney. Why the story is doesn't involve Sidney in 6, we know, is because of financial reasons. Neve Campbell said specifically that she offers a lot more to the franchise and she's been working so hard in her career that she feels like she got lowballed and she backed out of it. It wasn't like a disagreement with writers. It wasn't a problem with Courtney Cox, or maybe that contributed to it. But we know that she didn't want to do it because she felt like she would have been paid more if she was a man. And whether or not that's true, whatever. There definitely could be some truth to that. So if they want, they could have like an entire like side story about Sidney dealing with Stu. I don't know, but I think having Leslie want revenge is a woman scorned. You know what I mean? Like, she lost her son. It doesn't matter if we didn't like the character. It doesn't matter if it wasn't like the current character's like responsibility. The truth of the matter is, her son got involved in all this stab nonsense and she wants it to end. I think by Leslie having a motivation of trying to coerce all these survivors and all these people tied from the original like events of Stab/Scream to the present, end it all. Kill all the living survivors, kill everybody so that no one else has to get hurt. She could have justified in her mind that by killing the Carpenters, killing all their friends, killing Kirby, that could be the end of the cycle. There's no other like copycats out there because, you know, you would just have to start over and it really wouldn't make sense because like everybody who matters to the original story is dead. Stu, on the other hand, it would be an interesting twist if Stu had his motivation saying, yeah, totally, Leslie, let's do that. Yeah, let's avenge your son. Let's put an end to all this. But really his motivation is like, I want to finish what I started and I'm pissed that I didn't win and that I've been injured and I've been out of the spotlight for all this time and that I'm not famous and all these other losers have tried to become like stab killers and they've had movies and spin-offs and stuff. I'm the original. I'm the number one. Like, it's like a Homelander mentality. No doubt the dude is insane, right? But I think years and years and years after the events of everything that we've seen from Woodsboro to New York, he's been trying to heal up. Maybe he's been training. Maybe he's been studying all the different detectives and what their methods were for catching killers. Maybe he's been studying all the killers and finding out where they went wrong. Maybe he's learning to be the ultimate killer. And to be honest, we talked about this. I thought when Ghostface says to Gale, and he's taunting, when he says like to the effect of like, it's weird we've never spoken on the phone, I was like, okay, that's an interesting way to put that, and I'm something different. I'm like, oh, okay, that's an interesting way to put that. Maybe it would have been Stu, and that was a surprise. Granted, it did turn out to be something way different than what we expected, obviously. But the chances that Stu is alive are growing by the day with the teases that the writers are saying, the Easter eggs throughout the movie, the fact that they brought up Leslie and they never touched base on her again, the fact that they're linking all the family, the fact that they're connecting all the brothers and sisters and the dads and everybody that wants revenge for their family members that were killers and that died. Like, Richie was a piece of shit who was a complete nut job. There's no reason to avenge him, even if you are a mom, a dad, a brother, or a sister. That dude deserved what he got. But if they can justify trying to get revenge for Richie's death, then I think Leslie would absolutely want to try and get revenge on anyone tied or related or connected to the events that got her son killed. And I think Stu, if he's alive, he's going to use that to his advantage, and he's going to play on Leslie's familial feelings to try and get what he wants, which is to kill Sidney. Oh, but Sidney wasn't around during the events of 6, so Stu didn't need to be around. He's still silently watching. And he brought up another point, too, that Leslie would have to live a very sheltered and secluded life because she was tied to Stu. Now, if she cares so much about her son's death that she would want to get, like, revenge, and again, this is if I'm a writer, right? If she cares so much about her son being killed, she has to care about her brother. So maybe she changes her name, and now she has no family because Vince is dead. and maybe Stu is all that she has left. And so she decides to side with Stu, even though she had to change her name because of him. You know what? Family, love, those relationships, they do weird things. She wants revenge for Vince. She's changed her name. She wants to get close to Sydney. What better way to do that than to hide her real identity? She's hiding who she really is. She's keeping her true name a secret. Maybe she's using her legal married name that changed when she got Vince, because I think Vince's last name was what, Schneider or something like that. So maybe she's using that name or something. And maybe, well, maybe that would be too obvious. You'd probably figure that out like right away. So maybe not that, but you know, maybe using some other name or whatever in order to conceal who she really is, whatever that looks like. You get what I'm saying? And so she's wanting to put an end to all this stuff. So she encourages Stu to end the cycle, kill them all, get revenge for my son. I don't want anybody else to get hurt. And if they all die, that means there will be no more copycats, because there would be no reason to, because all the main characters are dead. You'd have to do a complete reboot, and reboots suck and fail, so maybe they wouldn't want to do a reboot because there's nothing better than the original. That sort of mindset. Scream has always kept up with the themes of subverting expectations based off of what we've seen in movies and what we've seen in films, specifically slasher films, and it's very self-aware, it's very on the nose. It would make sense that the characters would follow that to the letter while also having their own agenda, which is revenge and love and trying to, you know, do whatever they want to do to feel right about their family member that got killed, you know? So I think there's definitely a logistical reason as to why Leslie would want to do this, and I certainly think there would be a reason why Stu would want to help her, and I certainly think that Stu could be alive and that he would use Leslie just like Billy used him all the years earlier.
You see, I don't mind there being one Ghostface if there were to be a Scream 7 film to where that one Ghostface ends up being someone very unexpected. I definitely think that by having Stu's sister be the killer, would that be very unexpected? But I think to pop the crowd, Stu needs to be the one, and we're going to be touching up on that on a later video, to where, again, let us know what you all think down in the comment section below. Do you guys agree, disagree? Who do you think should be the killer and why? Again, thank you all so much for watching, to where once more, if you guys also just so happen to be new to this channel and of course love horror, then I do encourage you all to head on over and smash that subscribe button on top of giving this video a big fat thumbs up right now by smashing that like button down below, to where, as always, tune back in for more. And with that being said, we're going to be seeing each and every single one of you down in the comment section below and in the next video. Take it easy, guys, and have a great day. Peace!